Please let me call in the next panel, which is Rose Kananu. Please come up. And the first panel of the day is the economics of the project economy in Kenya. Isn't Rose looking amazing? Yes. Rose is an engineer. I know she's going to introduce herself. And there's also Henry Obare. He's a director of digital transformation. Are you here, Henry? Please come up. And then Ezekiel Odera, Agile coach. Please come up. Ezra Nyaega, are you here? Ezra, are you here? Yes. He's a consultant. Alan Maturu, he's a program manager. Alan, you're here? There we go. So that is the first panel, and I will be moderating that. The economics of the project economy in Kenya. Yeah. So I'm going to ask the panelists first to introduce themselves real quick. Just say your name, which sector you're in, and the role that you play. Maybe we start with John? Yes.
Good morning.
Henry, yeah.
My name is Henry Obare. I'm in the IT industry, and I'm responsible for project management and IT consultancy. I run my own company that deals with project management and consultancy in IT. Thank you.
Okay. Karibu, Henry. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you and good morning all. I'm Ezekiel Odero. Have good exposure to banking, insurance, and telecom now. I'm an Agile coach at the moment, working with the cross-functional teams to make Agile work for an organization in terms of ways of working to deliver projects in the project economy.
Good morning. I'm Ezra Nyaega, a project management consultant. I work in IT and renewable energy, specifically solar. Currently, I lead a team at Dawascope Technologies, that is in software, and also some trainings at LaunchUp.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, it's great to be in the midst of great people, and I'm definitely humbled. My name is Alan Maturu, and I am a program manager, or rather a very passionate program manager for that matter. I work with the leading technology company within this region, and I'm more than happy to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here as well. My name is Rose Kananu. I am a project manager, spent about 22 years in the construction industry. Right now, I am providing project management advisory through my consulting firm. And I also serve on the Kitraco board, the Kenya Transmission Company, as the technical director. Thank you.
Good, thank you so much. Welcome. And my name is Jean Matheng, everybody knows. So I'm going to be moderating the session today, and we're going to try and extract the knowledge from these experts about the topic of the day of the panel, which is the economics of the project economy in Kenya. So I want to start off with a question, because most people probably are looking at the statement project economy. What is project economy? When we talk about project economy, what is that? Maybe we'll start with the lady.
Yeah, I think the project economy is really driving towards projectizing the way we do our work. And we've seen that with, I think, the topics that we've had in the morning, change, VUCA, operations, and the operational approach, which is very predictable, is not going to work anymore. And the project management and projectizing the way we do things in order to just manage the changes that we're experiencing is very key. I'm sure I'll be speaking later, but in my space, in the construction industry, just looking at Africa, we've heard of the trends that were mentioned by the speakers earlier, but the biggest trend in Africa is the doubling of our population in just 25 years, just under 30 years. And that's going to mean that to serve this big population, the infrastructure, to develop the infrastructure at the pace that's required to catch up with the population growth, we have to projectize. So that's my take for now, but I know we'll talk more.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. Maybe, Henry, you can also weigh in on that. In your perspective, what would be the project economy? What is a project economy about?
So in my perspective, and what I see is going on in the trend in the world is recognizing whether organizations or governments should continue being operational or being project-oriented. Mm-hmm. If you look around in the past, and traditionally, organizations will have huge number of people in operations support. Your organization probably has double the number of IT support people compared to the number of IT project management people. The same with construction. How many maintenance people do you have compared to how many project people do you have? And project economy is around changing the mindset from being an operational kind of setup to being a project-oriented setup, where you continuously focusing on what's the next project that you should be in, because that's what will drive whether you change, whether you are competitive. If you're focusing more a lot on being an operational organization, then that mindset simply means you are not driving change. Because for you to drive change, then you must be more of a projectized organization that is looking for new opportunity, converting into a project, driving that project, and when you finish, you're looking for a new opportunity that bring a competitive edge to your organization or to the country at large. Thank you.
So what would be some of the competitive areas where that would spur? I know Rose mentioned, like for instance, there's population that is coming in, and therefore the demand on infrastructure would then need projects to be done. But why is that projectization? Because after all, that would be a housing project. Then we would do a water project. But what is this aspect of projectization that then is bigger than just doing projects? What is that? Maybe I can ask, is it Ezra?
The need for that is that we are trying to shift the focus from only just doing the project, but deriving the benefit and the value that it will be able to bring about, so that we're not only doing this project for the purpose of counting that we have done a given project, but what is this value that we are going to create. And with this disruption in terms of technology, and a lot of changes are happening. So what are some of these changes that we'll be able to incorporate, that we are not only looking at this short term, and we are also ensuring that whatever solution we are bringing on board, whatever value we are creating, will still be varied in the next 5-10 years. Yes.
So what we're saying then in terms of the project economy is that it's this big, we're going to be running projects, or we're going to be on project mode constantly. Is that what we're saying? This is what we're saying. That now, instead of us just running a project one at a time like the way we normally do, because it has to be done, everything is going to be done in projects.
Yes.
What is our readiness in terms of that? And maybe Alex can respond to that. I'm still trying to get the name so that we can, so bear with me.
Good.
Yeah, what is our readiness in terms of that? Because if we are saying that the project economy is about running projects continuously, we are just going to be in project mindset. How ready are we?
My perspective is that I don't really think that we are fully ready, and I think it's a continuous process, and to some extent we can call it's also a project, if I can put it like that, because just borrowing from what you mentioned earlier, earlier during the year we had approximately, I think you mentioned 300 or so certified PMs, or rather members for that matter, and now we are close to 800, and the journey continues. It's about creating value and transforming lives. And I think through projects and even through that drive, that's where we are meant to be gearing towards.
Henry mentioned that, like now in the government, it would be, this is a thing that we'd be running multiple projects, but I'm going back to the question of how ready are we? Because even the government is running a lot of projects, and I'll ask Ezekiel.
Yeah, thank you. I think as a country, we are on the nascent stages of having an established project management way for the government especially. It is noteworthy that, for example, the government did put in place the Presidential Delivery Unit in 2015 to help bring coordinated efforts on national government projects, running them, evaluation, and just being able to realize value for them. There has been notable benefits in that in terms of some of the key infrastructure projects that the government has delivered. Look at the SGR, the LAPSET ongoing, and possibly the latest Nairobi Expressway. I think more of this will be helpful. There's also room, for example, to consider opportunities about providing legislations that make project management a recognized effort in meaningful delivery of impactful projects for the nation. Similar to the way we have for other professional bodies like the Law Society of Kenya, the accounting professions, and so on. So I think those could be some of the areas that could be of importance if we could contribute to as members to help spur the project economy in the country. And just back to the concept of having, being in the contiguous project mode, you might realize that, for example, in organizations, there's normally the hope to have a project run and be finished. But do you run projects, complete them, and get off completely? You find that after one project finishes, there's another one coming up. So there's a concept called Roll Track Agile that helps us to ensure that we have continuous monitoring of the market to peak in terms of what is the next project that we'll be working on based on the value. So there's the concept of the discovery phase and the delivery phase, where we have two parallel tracks running together at the same time, scanning the market and delivering, so that you always have a consistent mindset of continuous customer focus and value delivery for our projects. Thank you.
Actually, just stay on that point on agile, because you see now, agile is a way of working. You know, even me, I'm still learning on about agile. But then, in project management, even in the government or in some sectors, is not that mature. So now, bringing in this aspect of agile in terms of to projectize, how ready are we? Are we struggling? What do we need to do so that we can actually get that? We can embed that.
Yeah, in terms of agile ways of work, which is also one of the core talent triangles in the updated PMI talent triangle, I think as a country, again, we are doing fairly at the base stage. It's interesting to see the number of organizations that are setting up operations or other agile delivery functions, either as APOs, agile practice offices, or agile program offices, PMOs coming up, and some coming up with the transformation management offices to actualize the realization of agile benefits for the organizations. If you look at the banking sector, for example, I think they've done fairly well. Most banks started off with a number of PMOs of different formations and different efficiencies as well. We have seen a number of banks going into more coordinated agile delivery of projects in their areas. We are also seeing a number of this happening in the tech startups, especially because in these cases, they naturally start with an agile mindset in place because they have no legacy operations to fall back on and therefore suffer the problem of transitioning to agile transformation. So I think if we could pick a cue from the way the startups work in terms of how they deliver their products, we'll have a great advantage to that. And more particularly, I think we also need to entrench Agile in our ways of working. And Agile is more about the mindset. It may not be the methodology of the frameworks, but how do we position our mindsets, recognize the people, the collaboration, the efforts that they put in, and provide the psychological safety that makes people feel included, able to contribute, and be able to challenge the system and come up with new ways of working that bring value to the organizations and the teams that they work for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can just dwell on that in terms of some of the challenges. And I'm going to ask Rose, because you're in the built environment engineer. Maybe you can tell us what are some of the challenges that we're getting so that we can actually achieve this leap to projectization, to the project economy.
Yeah, I think if I speak about the construction sector, the main barrier is actually mindset. Because if I go back to the question, as how ready are we to move into a projectized economy? The built environment has always been in the project space, but we've used traditional methods of project management. So the barrier really is the mindset, to take that leap into speed, into agile. And I think, and the experience I'm getting now, I've been in the infrastructure space now the last 10 years, say, and I've seen, look at, our major infrastructure, the pace at which it takes to develop. I think the Nairobi Expressway was a big game changer for us because we literally watched a big concrete structure being manufactured overnight in front of our eyes. And that already was a trigger to professionals in the built environment that infrastructure can actually be built faster. So where I see it, The big barrier we have is not that we don't have the project management skill or even the other capabilities that are required to move in a truly projectized environment. It's really the mindset. And if we can get more of the agile thinking, the agile coaching coming into this space, it can make a difference. I've experienced it. I'm on working on a special economic zone project, which was kicked off in 2017. My company just came into it in October. And to kickstart the project, we started with the agile ways of working. And you can see almost there's fear, you know, when you say we're going to work in this space. Yeah, so it's really the mindset that's going to unlock agile and project economy.
Thank you for that. And in fact, Alan, you said, was it Alan or Ezra? Ezra is the one who is in the solar space?
Yes.
Yes. Tell us what are some of the challenges in the solar space? Because in Kenya we have like now the Lake Turkana wind project. We have geothermal. We have so many projects, but for me, I don't see that as projectization. What are some of the challenges that we're seeing in that particular area, or opportunities where we can projectize?
Maybe opportunities in the solar space is like, was it a few days ago? There's a project, the Tuk project. I think you are aware about it.
No, we are not. Tuk project. Who knows about the tuk-tuk?
There's one electric tuk that was launched last year, but one at NYS. So they are trying to now build infrastructure for the EV, so that the charging stations across the country whereby they can be able to leverage on. And one of the things we are trying to look at is do we have, because the government wanted to understand, do we have local manufacture for the solar panels or assembly? And now that we are going to use supercapacitors, what are they readily available? And in my research and a few calls here and there, we realized that there's only one company which was doing solar panels locally, but they stopped because of the cost of production. And then on batteries, no, it is only on the recycling bit of it. So it means there is still huge opportunities as we are talking about green economy. As we shift to that space, there's still a lot that is supposed to be done. On another case, the number of professionals, there are very few in that area. So meaning it is our responsibility as project managers so that we can be able to initiate such initiatives so that we can have more people on boarding, and with that we can be able to create capacity and even be able to initiate some of those initiatives for infrastructure and for local manufacture so that they can be able to be taken up.
So for you, you're saying that internal capacity is really what is lacking for us?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then how would that, because every time that we talk about capacity, training and all this, what are some of the best strategies that actually we would be looking at in terms of that? Because it's not just in solar. It would be in very many other areas, and maybe Alan, you can talk about some of what you're seeing in program management in terms of capacity, because we are not where we need to be simply because maybe we don't have the in-house. What have you seen?
Maybe as he's going. So one of the challenges we have, I think, is in terms of curriculum. Yes, because the basis of the curriculum we are using, or the one that is used locally to train professionals, is a bit outdated, and whereby things are changing day in, day out. So meaning there is also, in terms of curriculum development, we need to upgrade that so that we can also change it over time so that it can be able to suit that all professionals that come to the industry are able to compete with the current trends.
So let me just stay on that point, because in project management,
yes,
we understand that actually even though it's good to have the domain expertise or the domain knowledge, you really don't need to have, like now for solar or for energy,
yes,
not necessarily have gone into that practice. What is your comment on that? Because there are a lot of project fundamentals are the same. So if you're a project manager in construction, you should still be able to run a project even in IT, and therefore in these different types of projects. So when you're talking about curricula, are you saying curricula for the project managers or curricula for that particular domain?
For both,
Yeah.
both cases, because for particular domain, yes, for you as a project manager to effectively execute that project, so that you bring about the value, you require professionals in that field who have the right technology and who can be able to execute it to the demand. But now, if you as the project manager, you are not updated with the latest trends, or now you can be able to manage this project, and you don't have the right team, in which we call a high effective team, then you will not be able to deliver that. So it is all about in all dynamics, that is maybe in collaboration with our local universities, so that those people who are trained in project management can have the latest tech in the industry. And also now, on the technical aspects, they can also have the latest tech. With that, we can be able to deliver projects with efficiency.
Okay. That's an interesting. What do you think, Alan?
Thank you. So for starters, I think we are moving towards the right direction. Let me start it from that point. This is with regards to sensitization of project management as a discipline, as opposed to it being like a side dish, for lack of a better word. And me being in the technology space, the status quo probably in many instances is that probably we have a developer who's developing something, probably who's coding, or we have an engineer who's gonna basically configure a box, a storage box, or a server. And probably that kind of a person eventually is transited into a project manager. While ideally, in my perspective, the situation should be more of you having a professional project manager who can run across different disciplines. However, just to add something different, I believe something that we can do, and I think something that had been mentioned earlier as well, is on policy. And this is working with the requisite government bodies to push project management to be a recognized discipline, and not just, a hobby or a side dish, for lack of a better word. And I'll give examples just to close. We have professional bodies like ICPAK, etc., right? And this is a challenge, actually, and just in closing. Challenge to everyone here, and probably the ones who are going to see us online. So for me, this place. So if probably we had an ICPAK meeting or something similar to that, we would probably require more space than what we have currently, right? And but however, as you can see, we still have a long way to go to make sure that we are recognized as a discipline. And I believe one of the best ways to do it is, of course, through government policy and probably a bill in Parliament. I don't know. Thank you.
Henry, maybe I can go back to you, and thanks for that, Alan, because you're in the digital space. And actually, maybe the digital space is where you're seeing a lot of, this influx of a lot of projects that are happening in response to VUCA. What are some of the things, or maybe some of the challenges or opportunities that are there to really up that game?
One of the challenges is that things should start at the top. And at the top, I don't mean it has to be the CEO or the CIO making decisions on how projects should be run or how they should be executed or who runs the projects. Anybody who is responsible for running a project at whatever level, whether you're in charge of delivery or in charge of development or in charge of construction, how do you decide who runs the project? I think that's where the challenge is. How do you decide who runs the project? Who decides who runs the project? I think as long as you are responsible for initiating and implementing projects, it is our responsibility to make sure that projects are run by professionals. And I say this because I did it practically. A couple of years ago, I had a team of about 8 project managers. Just half of them are actually qualified project managers, but nobody really cared as long as there was a name called project manager running the project. And I think I took a decision that every project manager must be PMP certified. And I saw quite a big difference because it took me time to, for instance, to make them understand why certain things need to be done a certain way. and to follow certain project management methodology and so on. And when this was done, then it was smooth all the way. And that also the reason why I say it is the responsibility of those who are at the top that to make a decision of who runs the project. A good example, I think, in this region, one country that I remember took a decision to make sure government projects are run by certified project managers, was Rwanda, I think, a couple of years ago. And there's a big difference, even if you see how projects are being executed in Rwanda. And I think that is what our government needs to adopt and say all government projects need to be executed by project managers, certified, qualified, experienced project manager. And you'll see big difference in how projects are executed. Some of the very successful government projects, if you keenly look at them, they're executed by qualified, experienced project managers, either from a vendor side, the construction company that won the tender, or probably the government institution had an experienced or qualified project manager who ran the project. So from a government side, we need to create a policy that says government projects must be headed by qualified project managers. And from institutions and organizations at our low level, we should also make it a conscious decision that we have project managers running projects. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Henry. Where does quality come in? And maybe I don't know whether to ask Ezekiel or Rose, because I think what we have seen, especially in the built environment, is a lot of, there's a lot of construction happening. And maybe that's an area actually that has become projectized. But projectization is not just we are running many projects. It is the quality of the execution of that work. Maybe Rose, you can speak to that so that we can see. Is that an area that we need maybe to build in some capacity, or what are some of the things that we need to look at?
Yeah, I think in the quality aspect, especially in the construction industry, it's twofold. There's the aspect of governance, which restricts taking shortcuts, and the other aspect is value. Because at the end of the day, what you're pursuing is not perfection for the sake of perfection. It's you're really looking at delivering value. So we've seen a deterioration in quality, especially in the built environment. I think we see the opposite in the IT sector, because there's so much innovation that is pushing the boundary of quality. But in the built environment, I think that the pressure of the need to build infrastructure really, really fast because of the growing population that I was talking about, but it's not supported by the discipline around the governance. We've seen even professionals really just watering down their own quality standards of their own professions. The engineers not going through all the checks. And we've seen a spate of buildings collapsing, multiple, week after, I think started in September. Like a crazy phenomenon. Every month we have a 5-story, 6-story building coming down like a bunch of pancakes. So it really behoves going back to strengthening the governance around ensuring that the quality checks are met, even if there is speed, or maybe you're taking the shortcuts because you want to take advantage of the wave of big drive around construction, so make as much money as fast as possible. But really, it's looking at it the wrong way. Let's strengthen and bring back the discipline and the sanity around the governance in all areas, both the project governance and the technical governance, and then really ask at the end of the day, why are we doing this? What's the value? What's the value we're looking for? And that will correct that equation around quality.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And when we're talking about value, because we're saying, okay, well, let us projectize the economy. Let's projectize Kenya. But if we're already implementing projects like the expressway, we've already seen the superhighway, what is the additional benefit of projectization?
I think I would like to look at projectization of the overall project economy, because project economy is looking at benefits. It's looking at deploying the limited resources that we have, whether it's cash or human resources, and the need to deliver and complete in a short time. So value really gets realized on how well and how efficiently we utilize the resources that are available, the cash resources, to unlock value and still preserve cash to deploy onto more and more projects. While I was doing some research around this project, I just again, saw a study again, 35% of projects that are being implemented succeed, meaning 65% of the time, the money, the human resources spent on projects globally is wasted. Now that's a disaster for Africa. We don't have enough cash to power the project economy that's required to build the infrastructure we need to meet the future needs. So really, project managers must really start thinking so much more around how are we unlocking the value and not just applying our technical skills to make sure projects are completed. Yeah.
Alan, you want to add maybe to that? Because I can see John has stood up and he's signaling that we are out of time.
Okay, thank you. So just to add on to that, I think even with respect to construction, I think most of us are familiar with airlines, right? So whenever the pilots, before takeoff, they usually have a checklist, right? And of course, this is to ensure that the plane, every piece of, let me call it governance, is there to so the plane can take off successfully. And also on landing, same thing is implemented. So even with respect to construction, etc., I believe even if you look at it across the board, I don't want to make it very structural or very, archaic, for lack of a better word, or archaic project management, but I'd say like to some extent, yes, you would need some level of governance just to make sure that you have a successful project. And I believe even borrowing from our example that you mentioned earlier on the expressway, the guys who implement such projects, they are using project governance, for lack of a better word. It's not just an expert. I know that because, I was tracking the same development, and what the former president was just lauding the project for was that this project doesn't just have the technical person, but also has a person who's monitoring the progress, monitoring the quality, and overall someone who's basically making sure that all these things are being done so that you can have a successful project, not just from a point of completion, but also from a point of quality and also from a point of benefit. Thank you.
Thanks. Ezra, in fact, in terms of maybe, because there was the talk about people, and projects cannot be done without people. Where do you see now the focus should be now when we are doing the projectization? We talked about internal capacity, but now in terms of now this leadership for the high-performing workforce, for instance, what are some of the things that we can maybe pay attention to?
So in terms of people, where we could be able to pay maybe more attention to is that we may need to build that more capacity. And for us to do it even effectively, most of the time the reliance will be on us, the project managers. And the reliance being on us, most of the time you realize we have maybe many projects that you are handling at a given point of time. And probably some of the projects you only issue guidelines. But it is now a high time that we move from that space that only providing advisory, but just after providing that advisory, work with them step by step until implementation, so that the advisory you issued or the plan that you came up with them, so that they can be able to realize those benefits. And in that, as you are performing that, ensure you are also developing other individuals so that they can also learn the best modalities of workmanship, so that they can also be part of the team.
Okay, great. And maybe Ezekiel, just to kind of, I know you want to add to that?
Yeah, and just adding to that, I think it's increasingly getting more important to be more than T-shaped skilled, where you develop horizontal skill sets that cut across different areas of knowledge, and you develop depth or in-depth knowledge around a specific domain or area. So this becomes very important in being able to adapt to changing environments that we work in. Providing training opportunities is equally important. There are certain simple opportunities, like maybe just an organization paying for the LinkedIn Learning platform for their members to be able to learn a multitude of programs there on different areas. And providing specialized trainings, for example, to the leadership team on areas of interest, and especially in areas of psychological safety, to enable them provide the teams with the capability and space to execute once they have been given the strategic direction and focus to deliver on the mission.
Great. And then maybe we can ask Henry, maybe you can just wrap up for us then. What is the economics of the project economy?
So just to summarize, it starts from an organization or a country changing mindsets and saying, is our country a project country? Is our organization a project organization or an operational organization? Because that's the beginning. And because we are in a situation where there is a lot of change, I think if you look at the concept of VUCA, there's vulnerability, uncertainty, and there's all these dynamic changes that are taking place, then it means organizations need to find a way or converting the organization to a change adaptable organization that continuously looks at what are the likely uncertain situations that will arise in the next 1 year, and how do we create projects to be able to accommodate changes that are taking place. So we have to balance between continuing being an operation that is just focusing on maintaining the status quo to an organization that is dynamically changing, and that is how project economics comes about. You projectize everything in your business. And then secondly, this could be a concept that you adopt in different ways. And I think I started to look at what Safaricom did when they said it's an agile organization. And that probably what means is that everything that we are doing in an agile manner, and which means that we have every team is an agile team. And being an agile team or being a project team means that there's no silo. Every project is being, everything, whether it's a sales initiative, whether it's a support initiative, is being run as a team. And which means you've got a project leader in it, you've got a sales guy in it, you've got somebody, an operational guy, and they're all learning how to create projects around solving problems. And then, so that again makes the organization create an opportunity for learning, and create an opportunity for a stakeholder management, which is around people. So everybody feels I'm involved, I'm contributing to this initiative, and I'm part of the success. And that creates learning, it improves education awareness about project management, and most importantly, it motivates everyone in the organizations and makes people skills and people motivation be unified in the organization. And then lastly, what's the benefit? And this is where we come about how do we measure value from these projects, because then we have projects that are initiated, and traditionally we measure projects from the time we started, and we say this project has taken 2 years or 1 year, it has cost us this money, so we are within budget and we've closed it. But what happens after the project is closed? Is it adding value? So we all talk about SGR was a nice project, the expressway is a nice project, it's completed, it's beautiful, it's shiny, but what is the value? Is anyone measuring the value of that project after it has been officially closed? And that's where sometimes we go wrong, even in technology projects, where the project is handed over to support team, and the project team walks away, and the business is either using or not using it, and you're not sure whether you're getting value. So projects should now move into, a project is not ending when you cut over or go live, but there is continuous monitoring of what is the value of that project. Thank you.
That was such a good summary. I don't even think I need to do anything else. And I think most of the things that, some of the concepts that you've brought up, like benefits realization, which comes up after the deployment of the project, those are things that actually, us as project managers need to kind of keep in mind from a sustainability perspective. So we have implemented this project. Is it still continuing to deliver the benefits to the economy? And when we look at some of the benefits, they're financial, they're societal, they're things that are going to contribute towards a betterment. Yes, and this is the value that projectization or project management is bringing. So I think in terms of just closing, and I want to thank the panelists so much. I know we didn't have too much time for that, and John is already walking up. But the project economy basically then is about project. It's a revolution of projects. That's what it is. And it is in response to this VUCA environment. Because the usual BAU, or business as usual, cannot be business as usual. The way that we are running projects in BAU, or the way that we used to do it before, it cannot be able to, to meet some of the disruptions effectively. So when we are projectizing, we need, people are looking at more task-based, results-oriented type of activities. And this is where projects are now are coming in, where everything is going to be done through projects. In some countries, like in Europe, actually some of them, a percentage of their GDP is already going to those type of activities where you're just running projects. Some organizations have roles which are just aligned to projects. And maybe that, and maybe that's what it is that it's a mindset. That we come out of where we are and we start looking at how can we run projects efficiently, effectively, make sure that we have the internal capacity, make sure that we are aligning or we're assigning professional project managers, and then equipping the project managers with those skills to implement projects. So with that, I just want to thank you so much, Rose, Alan, Ezekiel, Ezra, and Henry. Thank you so much.